So recently I made a video about how to get the C# configuration, the right C# configuration for NeoVim. And I made a little mistake because it was based on Ubuntu and Fedora. It was not so much based on whatever else there is. And then I switched from Fedora to actually whatever else there is. I switched to Arch Linux and I encountered that I have a very specific problem, which is although I installed the .NET SDK version 8, when I try to use csharpier for formatting, which I need to because OmniSharp doesn't work for applying the editor config for formatting, then I get the specific error that .NET 8 is not installed, although I have it installed. In case you have that same error, the same occurrence that although you installed .NET 8, csharpier says .NET 8 is not installed, that video is for you. Enjoy. What we're going to do in the next couple minutes is we're going to reproduce the exact same error I'm talking about by taking a Docker image that is Arch Linux based, has the exact same setup and the exact same NeoVim configuration that we left off last time and that I have on my actual machines. Then going to reproduce that error and then actually fix it. Did I miss something? I don't think so. Let's jump in. Okay, last time we have been talking about the C# setup for NeoVim in regards of Ubuntu/Fedora. And I was assuming that it works just the same in Arch Linux, but I was wrong. That is why I make this video today. So today we're going to talk about a little edge case that might not be happening for most of you people. But I recognize that since I installed Arch Linux on my laptop to fix some Bluetooth issues. Whatever. So what we discover in Arch Linux is the following scenario. So let's imagine you have a basic console photo structure and you have an editor config. That editor config has a setup or a configuration that says the max line length is 20, which leads, if you do the formatting, leads everything to look like this a little bit. Yeah? So now the problem is that, interestingly enough, if we use the OmniSharp language server protocol or the OmniSharp LSP for formatting, which we could, then we realize that once we hit leader FM that we don't see any formatting. And I can demonstrate this right now. So here is the README, which is not super interesting, but when I go to the program, I'm inside a Docker container now, by the way. So this is the setup now that I'm talking about. We have a little console application, easy enough, that looks like this. You already see bad formatting. And we have our editor config that says max line length 20. So now when I go inside and I try to format with leader.fm, this is my formatting little thing. Okay, of course, I have to wait for the LSP to run. Now the LSP is going. Nothing happens. Nothing happens, although we have the formatting set up. And also, when I scroll further in the tutorial, I have the OmniSharp JSON file set up correctly. So once you install OmniSharp, there should be an OmniSharp folder in your root directory, in your home directory, and an OmniSharp JSON that has this configuration that says, at some point, formatting options, enable editor config support is true. And even giving that, this exact setup I have. So when I go now and I say NeoVim, OmniSharp JSON, this is what I see. That's a configuration. Looks good, right? Looks good. Although I have all of these things, it doesn't do anything. And as I wrote in the article, the solution, I have to format this, the solution is now we have two different things. We could use a different LSP, which can be quickly quite painful. It is really, really convenient to simply go and say Mason and then simply install the OmniSharp language server and set it up in spconfig in our Lua, Lua NeoVim configuration. Where is it? Where is it? Here, right? That is super convenient and things just work. So for now, OmniSharp is pretty convenient. But For some reason, I don't know why, it doesn't do deformatting. Doesn't do anything. Doesn't do anything. Whatever. So the solution now is, the second one is we could use C# here. We could use C# here for formatting. C# here is, it's a console application for formatting. Pretty easy. And the advantage that we have here is that we can use that thing inside NeoVim, and we can also use it in a pipeline, build pipeline, whatever, and have a consistent experience. So that's why we go for that. In order to understand what's happening here and how to use the C# here in NeoVim, I would like to talk a little bit about Conform. Conform is a plugin that you find here that is basically, it says lightweight yet powerful formatter plugin for NeoVim. It's a formatter plugin. It is not a formatter. What Conform is doing, when I go back, it is actually, I have it down here, essentially Conform is a wrapper that automatically assigns the correct formatting executable to whatever file type we have in the current buffer. Formatting is done by the executable, not by Conform itself. So what we have here, I have an example. This is the typical Conform configuration, which resides with the NeoVim configuration that we use, resides into config, NeoVim Lua, configs, conform Lua. And it says that when we use this section here, formatted by FT, means formatted by file type, and we say the .cs file type, we say, whenever we have a .cs file type, go into the formatter section and look for whatever we have here. So for .cs, we defined that C# here, whatever that is. We expect a C# here section within the formatters, and the C# here section then points to the executable, in this case .NET C# here, that does the formatting. So that is what Conform is doing. Now, the problem that we have with this is when we set everything up correctly, which I will do in a second, we run to a problem, which looks like this. So again, I go into the NeoVim configuration, I go into Conform, and you see right here, I commented it out. So I forced Conform to use the LSP to do the formatting, to demonstrate that OmniSharp is not doing the formatting correctly. So what I'm going to do now is I force it to use, or I configure it to use C# here. When I go back, I close that one, reload NeoVim, go back into my, choose the appropriate skin, theme, whatever. Go into my program, and now I see formatter failed. You see that? Formatter failed. When I now go into conform info, it says no frameworks were found. But I couldn't build this console without having .NET installed. I do have .NET installed, but for some reason it says no frameworks were found. It acts as if there was no .NET SDK installed. So what to do about this? Well, when I scroll, and I mark this one with Arch Linux, this should not happen in Ubuntu or Fedora. It should not happen. It should just work. So I have the section, the problem with C# here, where I say, when we use C# here, doop-de-doop-doop-doop-de-doom, we run into this. No frameworks found. And now the next step would be to make Conform Happy again. And we do this by installing the specific version that C# needs, which is 8.0.100. So formatting works again. So what we're going to do is we go into the Arch Linux.NET documentation, and we go to this section and just follow the instructions. So that's what we're going to do now. We have the we have it here, install multiple sections with multiple versions manually. We download this thing, copy the link for that. Maybe I should go to the home directory. Now we do wget, download that thing. So we have it here. We make that thing executable. Just copy that thing. Boom. And then we go and we install that thing. and it's important. We don't do this right from the wiki. We do slight adjustments. We say we want to use the lifetime version, and we want to have a specific version, 8.0.100, so we can use csharpier. Okay, so use this one. Takes a moment. Make sure to run as sudo. Otherwise, you're going to run into permission errors when it tries to copy files into your user bin, whatever, user share something directory, right? So here it says installation finished successfully. When I then go back into, I think it should just work. I hope it just works. And then go back into my console, start NeoVim, go here. I now expect it to look ridiculous after I formatted that thing. Works. As expected, right? So we have our editor config that says max line length 20. When we now go for 120, whoopsies. Start formatting again. We have now proper formatting. Yeah? So now when we go back to our scenario, and scroll down, you see that was the exact scenario that we was expecting it to be formatted properly, but the problem was it didn't, and we fixed it by making csharpier work for all this thing. I just want to point your attention real quick to the Docker container. This is the Docker container that I use to reproduce that thing. It's doing nothing fancy, it's just installing with Pacman the dependencies that you need to run NeoVim and all the stuff. We create a user Rambo, create the directories, downloads and documents, whatever, create the console application. Then we build that thing, run that thing, and we start that thing maybe in a different Tmux window or whatever. But that would be the Docker container to reproduce this scenario. And the next things we do is we go to, we use the Rambo NeoVim configuration, which is exactly the configuration from this article here, from the other video, okay? So nothing really fancy. All the rest is explained in the article, and I hope that helps in case you run into that problem. I just recognized every time I use Arch Linux and I want to use csharpier for the formatting thing, etc., then I get this precise error where no frameworks were found. And I realized that I have to install this specific version, doing it in this specific way, okay? So I hope that helps. See you in the next one.